a motion to take up item 2 ahead of item 1.
So moved.
Second.
Yes.
Moved and seconded, all in favor, indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. So, Jonathan or Steve, which one of you wants to put this up?
Is it already up?
That's this thing.
There we go.
So we've heard over the last meeting or two, a fairly positive and/or creative concept that rather than have the Department of Revenue sort of do this shadow, like we're gonna give you some money, but not easy to get a hold of, turn it into something more solid. And so there's a recommendation up here for us to go to the Board of Selectmen to suggest that the selectmen support us in that effort. That's the way I understand it, on the biggest basis. I did see an email recommending a minor change to this
Oh,
relative to the nitrogen-sensitive zones. Who popped that out there?
I did.
You did?
I think, right? I know I did. I don't know if
Okay,
anybody.
so what, would you like to make an amendment to this motion?
Yes.
This is not a motion.
Well, do you guys want to present it and
Yeah,
explain it first?
Let's make a motion first to go to the selectmen.
So moved.
yes.
Okay? Second, okay. We have a motion made and seconded to go to the selectmen to recommend the select board the following proposal. That the Water Quality Management Committee recommends to the select board a change in state legislation for the tax credit specific to the Massachusetts Department of Revenue Schedule SC septic credit for repairing or replacing a failed cesspool or septic system. The recommended change involves pursuing state legislation to alter the tax credit in Schedule SC from non-refundable to refundable. Whereas a non-refundable tax credit is used to offset and reduce a taxpayer's total tax due, a refundable tax credit is issued to the taxpayer regardless of tax owed. This proposed change will allow all qualified homeowners to receive reimbursement from the state for costs associated with installing an advanced system in those geoboundaries defined by the town as required such systems to meet nitrogen TMDLs. That's the motion. Now, you have a proposed amendment?
Yes. I think an addition amendment that the state doesn't know what a geoboundary is, and most people don't, because it's kind of a new terminology. And I think to make this into something that would be in a form that can go right to Beacon Hill, we should add in Mass DEP designated nitrogen-sensitive areas.
Within.
So that-
After geoboundaries, before the word defined, within. Within.
Well, I think, we could even just put in Mass DEP designated nitrogen-sensitive areas, parentheses, geoboundaries delineated by the water
Either way,
quality
either way.
management.
Delineated by the town, we're not,
Right.
the delineation.
Correct, good point, Ken.
Hold on a second. We're not gonna have 3 conversations.
Okay.
Raise your hand, Steve.
I want to point out, and I'm pretty sure, I think John will agree with me on this, that last sentence, in a way, has nothing to do with the legislative change that would be made.
Exactly.
It's there for explaining to the select board why we're interested, but it's not wording that will be in the law. The law has its own
So let's.
qualifications,
Right.
and all we're doing is changing it from non-refundable to
So-
refundable. We're not specifying a different place
But
for.
inside this motion, this is gonna be a motion, we're gonna take it to the selectmen. Perhaps you wanna take this proposed change and separate it down below with, say, an explanation.
Like they do on ballot issues.
Yeah.
Yes. that's-
Yeah, just make it a separate
So-
paragraph.
okay.
It was
Yeah.
put in there for the education
Yep.
Yeah.
of the select board, not for the
Tom had his
state.
hand up. Tom had his hand up. Tom?
Yeah, no, I'm just basically what Steve was saying, because we could get in trouble with adding a little bit extra stuff on here where we end up with the tail sort of wagging the dog. Because we could word it a certain way, and if people think that's the way we want it worded, where we don't want it, as Steve just said, we just want to change it from non-refundable to refundable. And we'll leave the focus of our recommendation on that, and then have this little explainer on the end that say, this is why we think this is important.
So,
Well-
do you want to withdraw your
No,
amendment
but
and
I want to.
make it make it
I
an
would like-
explanation?
I would like to respond to that, because what I'm trying to do here is, yes, use terminology that DEP and legislators are familiar with, but also to narrow the focus. If you just say you want to blanket change it for everyone in the Commonwealth to refundable, the cost expands dramatically. If you say it's only for specifically where DEP has said nitrogen-sensitive areas, you gotta do something, and IAs is part of it. So I'm saying it would not be refundable throughout the Commonwealth. It would only be refundable for those who are in a designated nitrogen-sensitive area. I'm narrowing the scope intentionally to reduce the cost and make it more palatable to Beacon Hill. And that's, my opinion. Do others on the committee agree or want to make it more general that it's for everybody? Adding to the cost, remembering that.
There's
A lot of
something
hands
very
up.
germane to that. That
Hold on a second.
Jonathan and I haven't
Jonathan, did
reported.
you have your hand up first or not? I didn't look your way.
Yeah, I think John should.
All I was gonna say is when we met with the council, Mara, she had advised that making it broader would give it a higher likelihood of passing, making it more localized and limited in scope makes it less appealing to the broader state government. So that's why we wanted to open it up. I hear what you're saying, and, part of her advice was we need to get an estimate of what we think this could cost, which we thought would be somewhat of a challenge for us for the whole state. But it was part of her concern was to limit it would make it less likely to pass.
That's what I was gonna say. And also, keep in mind that Steve has asked Jonathan and myself to contact other towns and a consortium of the towns and our legislative people, and it will really be up to the legislative people, one of whom is very much on board already, what they think, because they're gonna sponsor, and they will not hand this document in to anybody in the State House. They'll write up something themselves, and that may or may not contain any extra stuff that we have at the bottom. But I agree with Jonathan, that the town council did tell us to keep it statewide.
What's,
Oh, Tom had his hand up.
The other thing to think about is if you try to limit it now and looking farther down the road, the town, for some reason, in our attempts to meet our TMDLs, may decide that other areas that aren't in NSA sites need to be, or advisedly should have some kind of upgrade done. And if we've already said it's only NSA, we might end up in a bind there with somebody that wants to get on board.
Ken?
well, my only point was that, Ed's language is, which could go something like legislation for tax credit for residents in designated DEP and sensitive areas, Mass DEP. It's a Massachusetts, it's referencing the state designating these areas.
But this is only going to the selectmen, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I can step,
Right,
in, if I can step everybody for one second. We, as a board, are an advisory board to the selectmen. The purpose of this motion, setting aside the nuances of the wording, is for us to be able to go to the selectmen and say, we think this change is a valid change, and to get their acceptance for members of this board to continue to pursue whom they should talk to and how to make this change happen over time, okay? So this is not the last cut at the apple, okay? I do like the concept of taking the last sentence off to push it down and say, it's an explanation.
I like that
Okay.
too.
Yep.
So, you have an amendment on the floor.
Yes.
And there-
Yes.
We yet to have a second for it. Does anybody want to second his amendment?
I think Ed's amendment makes sense. I mean, you don't
You
want
want
to.
to second it?
Yes,
Okay,
because, can I say why?
sure.
because I think it is important to not imply that you're gonna pay for everyone's failed septic system, and that regardless of where it is and, you know, what the status is.
Well, that's up to, that's
I mean,
based
that's
on
not gonna be-
the existing law defines that. It's for failed septic system, and if new ones are required, then by definition, the old ones have failed.
Yeah, but you're changing this from,
That credit, if I may just interject, is also allowed for your connection to a sewer.
Yes.
So that,
Right.
again, by not limiting it to nitrogen-sensitive areas, you know, typically that's where you sewer, but you're expanding the scope of it on a statewide basis if that was the final law that was passed, that anybody hooking to a sewer anywhere in the state would get a refundable credit, which makes
No,
a sense for
no,
equity.
No,
No,
because, no, this actually is
Only for a
specific
failed
to an
system.
advanced septic system.
Spelled out.
I'm not seeing that.
So, can,
The credit as defined in Schedule SC is you can't use it for betterments, you can use it for sewer hookups on your property, you can use it on property that is not to be sewered to replace a failed septic. Limited criteria, but those are the defined. So if you say just tax credit is now a refundable tax credit, all of those criteria would qualify for it as refundable, which may make a whole bunch of sense when you look at the intent, I think, of all of us is to try to provide some equities, particularly to those who are low-income, fixed-income people who will be impacted by these changes and don't have enough income or pay enough taxes to take advantage of said septic credit. So,
Which is the whole point of
So,
why.
yeah,
we-
so, wait, just time out. Your issue about the way it is now, you can use the money to pay for hooking up to the sewer.
right, that's
is-
fine.
Let me finish. Is not generic to your amendment. I'm just gonna point that out momentarily. There might be another amendment needed to clarify.
Yes, okay.
That it's for the advanced systems,
Yeah,
okay?
yeah.
But, so, we currently have an amendment, a proposed amendment, to add the phrase, what was your phrase again?
In DEP, Mass DEP designated nitrogen-sensitive areas.
Okay.
You know, just because the term
that's just-
geoboundary is not understood widely.
So, I'm
Yeah.
gonna call the question. All those in favor of adding the phrase "in Mass DEP designated nitrogen-sensitive areas" to our recommendation to the selectmen indicated by saying aye?
All right.
Aye.
Okay. All right.
Now, do you want to put forward another amendment that you move that whole as modified sentence down below as explanation?
I would entertain that motion.
Also move.
Okay, second?
I'll second.
Do we want to discuss that, or do we want to vote on it?
Does our grammarian wish to read back his amended, or what he's seconding here, making a motion to? How, yeah, I think it makes sense, but what is it gonna say? Tom's your.
What it says now with
No, let's just,
with what you
let's
just
just move, let's just
modified.
split it now, and then we can add some more words. Let's
Yep,
just, okay? All those in favor of moving this proposed change and everything below it down to a record, to an explanation?
Aye.
Aye, okay, good. Are you editing as you sit there? Okay. Okay. Now, you've brought up a good point that as this stands right now, we're not clearly delineating that this change is specifically for advanced septic systems,
Right.
for the cost of advanced septic systems. Does anybody want to figure out how to make that so?
No, we don't want it to be specifically for that. We just, Jonathan's point was,
So what you're saying is if somebody's hooking up to, somebody's on the sewer system, and they're hooking up to the sewer, right, and it costs them $16,000 to hook to the sewer, you want them to get paid from the state?
If,
yes, if, the only thing consider the following. There are three taxes can be,
No, I'm saying right now, the way that piece of legislation is written right now, this gentleman to my right, when he hooked up, he was able to take advantage of that earlier form of that, different numbers for the connection on the sewer.
I'm going to explain that.
Okay,
I think. Jonathan's point was, there are three kinds of taxes. A credit is a negative tax, okay? there are three kinds of taxes: regressive, flat, and progressive. Most political arguments you hear are conservatives saying things ought to be flat taxed. Everybody ought to pay $10,000 whether you're making no money or you're Elon Musk. Other people say, no, it ought to be progressive, like the income tax. Jonathan noticed that this is not only not progressive, it's not even flat, it's regressive. The poor people get less of the negative tax than the rich people. That was the objection to it. We're not messing with any of the other boilerplate in it. If people saw fit to give a credit to middle and upper class people for X, then we're saying they ought to give it to poor people too for X. So we're not messing with what X is.
No, I understand your theory about how taxes work. But the question in front of us is, do we want to recommend to the selectmen that this piece of legislation be changed to a refundable tax credit applicable both to the installation of IA systems as well as to sewer systems?
Yes, and I think the
Yes.
town council was advising us that, to keep it simple.
Yes.
Once you get into the other weeds, it's just probably all over for passage. It's
The
just
same
too complicated.
philosophy applies, and it's the spirit of the law. We're not changing what this particular tax credit law says. It's how it's applied and how it then becomes accessible to people who don't owe money. Everything else about it is unchanged. It's just changing it from.
Understood, I just, nobody's written the change in the legislation yet, which,
Right.
So the question is, and I'm hearing that at least some of you believe that it should stay as it is, and that the change should be applicable both to sewer and to advanced systems, okay? So, there's no amendment on the floor right now to change any further wording, other than what we've done. Does anybody else have another amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the motion, of the motion as amended to make a recommendation to the selectmen signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Pio, we just jumped ahead because you weren't in the room, okay? We will now go back to our regularly scheduled programming agenda. Pio Lombardo is with us tonight. Thank you, Pio, for coming down. Are you still on the North Shore?
I'm sorry.
Are you still on the North Shore?
No, we're based out of Boston, we're in Newton.
Okay. You still had to come down through traffic, though.
Right, yeah, it was, I didn't realize even at 2 o'clock, 128 is still pretty bad.
Yeah.
So thank you.
So should I start now, or?
Yes,
Yeah, you are up.
Oh, okay,
she's
great.
just queuing
I
up
think
your
she's
phone.
just loading up your presentation.
Okay, while she's doing that, if I may, I just do some brief introductions.
I will ask you to speak into the microphone because we get recorded, okay? So if you can, introduce yourself.
Okay.
All right?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. I appreciate it, and nice to see many of you that, I've known over the years, as we've all tried to deal with the nitrogen issues, I guess for decades now. So first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to congratulate the committee for what you're doing, because you really are pursuing what you're challenged by is is implementing the decentralized approach, which has been advocated. We've been involved in advocating that, in assisting EPA on providing basis for the decentralized approach since 1980. And the reasons being that it's cost-effective and environmentally sound, as well as there's not enough money in the world to sewer the world. That's a good introduction. We got involved with the Nitrex system in the late 90s, in large part because realized that there was no technology out there that could deal with the nitrogen removal requirements for small flow applications, whether they're individual or I'm going to call them medium-sized flows. There was nothing out there that could meet the requirements, the water quality requirements, and we knew my background is heavy in water quality and water quality modeling. So we knew at the time, I wrote the water quality model that's even used by EPA today. So we knew that nitrogen levels needed to get down way below drinking water standards, which were the best requirements that were being applied. And by virtually 30 times lower, to go from 10 milligrams per liter to, as many of the TMDLs have determined, you got to get down to 0.35, plus or minus nitrogen. And there was no technologies around. So at that time, I teamed up with University of Waterloo, Will Robertson and John Cherry, because they had technology that was emerging at that time for nitrogen and phosphorus removal. And as some of you may know, they are really the leaders in the world of dealing with these issues. They got a lot of funding back in those days, I was told, by Procter & Gamble, because Procter & Gamble was scared to death that everybody was creating a hazardous waste site in their backyards with all of with Procter & Gamble's products. And the university folks were heavy into hazardous waste treatment, et cetera. So that's one, just for background and, for context. And then secondly, Pio Lombardo, who is he? I've been in this business for over, 50 years now. And, but we're engineers, and practitioners. And I like to say we're solution providers. And these days, we even get heavily involved with turnkey solutions, where we basically do design, sort of build, and operate. And we do that, and we provide guarantees on performance. And we find that that's really what is the way one creates value in the marketplace. So I'd like to jump into the slides that have been distributed. Do I just need to click on this?
Yep, you can use the right arrow, you can use spacebar.
All right, or the cross, how's that? No? Which one?
Hit escape.
Oh, wait,
No,
here we
there
go.
you
Oh, the middle one. Sorry. Okay, and I'm not here to sell products or anything. I'm really here to provide some suggestions on how we can provide value to the town and what your efforts are all about. And there's a variety of ways where we think we can be of valued assistance to the town. We're not hawking equipment, et cetera. That's easy to do, and we've already, we're not just equipment suppliers, okay? That's a very small part of our business. But I wanted to share with you our experience on RMEs. We've been involved with establishing RMEs for on-site purposes since 1980. And we were the engineer of record for 2 on-site districts that were the first in the country that were publicly established in New York State from 1980 to 1984. And we engineered full service from planning to design to construction oversight is 203 individual and cluster systems. In other words, more than one unit was connected to the system for the town. Now, back in the...
Pio, I'm going to ask you to stand near the microphone because it is getting
I'm sorry.
recorded, okay?
Yeah, and in those days, we were able to get 85% funding for those projects for the state because those grants were available. And obviously, that was very helpful in getting them implemented. We've also done master plans for counties in Florida and in Nevada, 50 and 15,000 systems on how to deal with a on-site wastewater management district on a large scale, as well as created pro formas for them in terms of, and you'll hear me say this and happy to talk about it if you're interested, is how in certain cases establish an on-site wastewater management district that owns and operates the systems and gets rid of, and there's a lot of benefits and positive aspects to it. There's a lot of wrinkles to it, but in my opinion, the benefits far outweigh the disadvantages. Okay, so as part of those, they were really business plans. So in terms of what user charges would be required, failure rates, et cetera. So we basically take the position that the decisions on wastewater management, it's a challenge to leave that to the individual property owners. Now, all of a sudden, you got thousands of, let me call it, decision makers about technology. And that's not necessarily the best way to proceed. We've also been involved in engineering on public-private partnerships on both sides of the table. We work for private entities who were pursuing those, as well as municipalities as their engineer of record in implementing those. And in Pawtucket, Rhode Island, we were the engineer there and achieved 50% savings on capital costs associated with a very large 25 MGD water treatment system upgrade. We've been involved in bulk purchasing of materials, very successful programs in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, which is basically Annapolis, BWI area. We engineered a wastewater system that frankly combines the centralized sewer with some cluster systems and on-site systems. And in the sewer areas, there were 7,000 properties that were connected, and we bulk purchased the septic tanks and the pumps. There was about half of them required individual pumps, and they were all acquired through a competitive process, bulk purchasing, and administered by the county to the contractors that were actually doing the work. I've done a lot of work with financial analysis on engineer letters associated with bond prospectus. And then one of the issues that's important on these matters is the legal aspects of access and O&M, and we're very familiar with the use of blanket easements, which really eliminates the needs for meets and bounds, which is a huge cost savings, as well as establishing the on-site wastewater management districts. The one in New York was tailored for the town, and the Massachusetts law does allow it. It's basically let me call it a sewer district of non-contiguous properties. We're not legal experts, but in my understanding, the legislation is already there. The enabling legislation is there. Again, we've been a consultant for EPA since '78. We've authored 8 manuals, been an engineer of record, and we've been honored with Engineering Excellence Awards. So here's some recommendations to the committee as you deliberate as, what is the best way forward. We would, seriously recommend that you think through the on-site wastewater management district concept. We think it has a lot of merit. Number one, you can amortize your capital costs. My experience, it becomes more, the probability of getting grants and low-interest loans increases dramatically. And one of the challenging questions on these sub-areas, if you will, you call them your geo boundaries, is, is the responsibility on the property owner that's getting the repair, to pay for it all, even with any subsidization. So there's, in my opinion, there's a lot of merit in terms of fairness and equity that those costs should be spread through the entire community on a certain percentage. Very similar to the concept that was the basis of sewering for many, many decades, that there's a community benefit to water quality improvement. And again, how does one decide which property is required to get an upgrade when you only need to do a certain percentage of them all? That's a really hard one to answer and deal with fairness and equity issues. There's ways to deal with by, basically treating it as a, if you will, a capital cost that everybody participates in. And in that regard, town funding can be used to support the program, or to obviously reduce the user charges that would occur, as the grants obviously do. The ownership option of private versus public, we've done the public and we've done the private. You know, we've engineered over 300 systems in my career, and to me, there's a lot of merit to having a public entity that operates the system, a single source responsibility. Where are the value opportunities in doing this? I know you've debated this over the months, and that was, in reading about that, I reached out to Ken and was interested in meeting with you, because this is my, passion and expertise for many decades. So I was happy to hear that you're having these discussions, and wanted to share with you, my experiences on that, on this issue. We've done a lot in this program, and, have had, a good number of successes, and as well as we've hit our heads on some bridges in a few places. But the value opportunities in my experience are, first and foremost, is bundling the construction projects, okay? In other words, pulling together multiple properties under one contract and getting those bid by the contract. When you look at the cost per unit, and you break down, there's the engineering cost, engineering/survey cost, there's the equipment cost, and then there's the installation cost, okay? People will focus on the equipment because it's easy, okay? But that equipment cost is really, the construction cost is significantly more, higher percentage of the overall cost. And that's subject to market conditions. Also, in the design phase, there's a number of opportunities there to minimize those costs. And we did that by, frankly, eliminating survey requirements. And there's ways to eliminate some of the survey requirements. And that's where the blanket easement comes in. I've seen the survey requirements in Long Island and Suffolk County, where this is a big, similar to what the Cape is, just add a zero though, is, it's easy $4,000 to $5,000 just for the survey work. And and then the bulk purchase is another, obviously, opportunity that I know you've discussed, and that's easy. Obviously, the challenge there is which technology do you actually even pursue? And then on the user charge that the property owners need to pay, a healthy percentage of that cost, well over 50% of the cost, even after the first 3 years, is associated with sampling. You got to do one sample a year. Well, that's really the big nut. And there are ways to sort of mitigate that from a management perspective by using statistical analysis. And there's a lot of work that's been done on that. Basically, how often do you need to be sampling things to get a reasonable determination of effectiveness? And I can't recall the exact, and it never got implemented anywhere, but it's a, quote, reasonably significant amount of money that can be saved in that regard. So, based upon, my years of experience and in this industry, I would, recommend to the committee to consider these value opportunities. So happy to talk about the RME issue now or later. Next section, I really was going to talk technology on the Nitrex system. We developed the Nitrex system, goes back to, 1999. And when we started with Will Robertson, and those systems have been evaluated by multiple agencies independent since that time, including MassTech, George Heufelder. And the technology is a simple process flow diagram. There's basically we use recirculating media filters and then a wood-based denite filter. What you're seeing with the other technology that is now available is instead of a recirculating media filter, it's in aeration basin. And in my opinion, it's basically what's referred to as an extended aeration. It's just bubbling a lot of air into it to convert all of the ammonia to nitrates. And then the nitrates get removed in their wood chip. Now, the difficulty with that, well, first, in my professional opinion, for small flow applications, air-activated sludge systems are not wise to use. They're highly susceptible to upset conditions based upon varying flow and strength. The other issue, when you're doing extended aeration, for practical purposes, you get zero nitrogen removal within the extended aeration unit. Okay, it's burning, frankly, it's burning all of that, I shouldn't say burning, but it's converting all of the ammonias to nitrate. So the wood chip reactor is now required to remove all of the nitrogen or nitrate that's there. Whereas with the technology that we've adopted, in the recirculating media filter, there's approximately 50% nitrogen removal. So the D-nite filter that we have only has to be removing, let's say, 50% of what a extended aeration system would need to remove. So all of a sudden, you can see there's a big capacity differential there. In terms of energy use, a recirculating media filter requires very little energy. $50 a year on electricity is really what you, because you're only lifting the water. You're basically lifting the water, let's say 6 feet, and the water then gets sprayed over the media, and this is a trickling filter technology that's been around for 140 years, and this is just the latest rendition of it. And years ago, rocks were used, so now we have also a number of different kinds of plastic media that are used for the recirculating media. But the key thing is the footprint requirement is significantly smaller, okay? Back in 2000, Will used sand filters, and we used sand filters initially for the D-nites, for the recirculating media filter. We don't do that anymore just because it's not cost effective, as well as getting sand of that quality can be not available or it's expensive. The footprint is 5 times the footprint requirement with just using the recirculating media filters we have. We're going from, frankly, it's more than 5 times. We're going from 3 gallons per day per square foot to 25 gallons per day per square foot on the application rate. So the oxygen that's provided occurs by the water being sprayed onto the media. And that's how, it's like a cooling tower. And the water, when it gets sprayed, air gets transferred and oxygen gets transferred to the water. So the energy requirements for that are pretty low. And the treatment system cannot be shut off, okay? So that to me is a positive aspect. You don't want that ability. That's one of the issues that has been of concern with aeration systems, is the property owners don't like the electricity bill and just pull the plug. So that's an industry issue that's been known for quite some time. Our systems can be completely gravity, depending if the site has sufficient slope. There's there's very little to no sludge that's produced in the system besides the sludge that settles out in the septic tank. Yes?
How do you do the spraying water with no power?
Excuse me?
How do you spray the water? You said the oxygen provided by spraying water.
Right.
How do you do that with no power?
When you have no power, you're using what we call a single-pass sand filter. So it's intermittent sand filter. The water just gets loaded onto it, working with gravity, and then drains through it, and it's a single-pass filter. You don't get any denitrification in the single-pass filter, so the D-nite component needs to be big enough. So I hope that answer? It's a single-pass
I
sand
don't want
filter
to
that's
dominate the
used.
questions, but you go ahead.
Okay. So, okay, and again, the sludge produced in the system is nominal. Frankly, we've never pumped out any of the systems for sludge. And at the end of the day, and what we've done in our systems is we provide, as me as a professional engineer, guarantees the system performance. And we've had no issues with that. And the system has been evaluated by just about everybody, multiple times, starting from Lapine, Oregon, is when the first testing was done. EPA funded it, was performed by the state of Oregon, and at that one, you can see there, it's the one in the upper right-hand corner that was referenced in that report in 2010 that was issued by EPA that shows that the nitrox system got down to 2.2, and that was based upon 2 years of data at at two residential properties, okay? And that was all quality control. USGS was involved in that as well. There were studies done in Suffolk County, New York, back in 2011, 2013, report published. They independently sampled 5 locations. Our effluent there was 1.58. And then back in the 2001, we had a unit at MassTech that was evaluated by them, and George issued a report back in 2008 that provided all the data. The key information there is that we got the averages that that George certified was getting an average of 4.1 milligrams per liter of effluent. And that was using a recirculating sand filter at that location. There were cold weather issues that we've solved since then, but so typically we're seeing our effluent total nitrogens averaging about 3. In the right hand, on the right side of the slide is the recently published DEP, Best Available Nitrogen Reducing Technologies, where DEP says that the Nitrex TN approval limit is at 10 milligrams per liter. DEP does not certify anything under 10 milligrams per liter, okay? So, and that's all on the public website. So,
Can I just?
I mean,
can I
the
just
short
stop?
answer
I
is-
just want to back you up, back up one slide.
Yeah.
You don't have to. You're at provisional right now. You're at provisional.
That's correct.
So this board has wrestled with that.
Right.
that 50 for 3 years to get to approved.
Right.
Where are you on that path?
We're at in the beginning stages, you know, and
You got-
I had talks with your,
I want to frame it if I can. I'm not picking on you here, but you need to get 50 installations.
For
and
general
3 years-
use,
and
right.
3 years of data.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. For
You're
general-
you're working on that.
yeah, we frankly had there was a preliminary proposal for this committee to have done this 14 years ago, and then for whatever reason, it got muted.
This committee's
Because,
gone through a lot of changes.
That was it.
what's this?
This committee's gone through a lot of changes.
Well, no, I'm just saying, the committee recognized this
Yeah.
14 years ago and spoke to me about, implementing 50 systems for that purpose.
I like your system. I'm just continuing to frame, as we write watershed plans and we tell people they gotta do something,
Right.
having people that can do it, that are at the general use approval level, we're a solid 3 years away still.
Right.
Which is okay. It's
No,
okay.
that's okay. I get it. I understand what you're saying. I would naturally, and I naturally am strongly of the opinion, general approval versus this. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't think it's relevant to dismiss things. My personal opinion and professional and actually self-interest, that shouldn't be a deciding factor.
I don't think we're gonna pull the trigger on telling people to put systems in for at least 3 years. We've got a couple, 2 or 3 years before we
Right,
to bring the
right.
hammer down, so you
Yeah,
got a
and-
shot
and,
at being
I
there.
mean, the record shows we've been doing this for over 20 years, okay? So, and they still working. So, nobody else is, no, it's gonna take somebody 20 years to meet our track record.
I'm sorry,
So-
I've sort of broke the ice, so.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, maybe, you know, give you a break and ask some questions.
Sure.
You know, to follow up on what Steve just said, well, how many are installed for how long in Massachusetts? We're looking at the Mass DEP requirement of 50 for 3 years. Do you have 20 that have been in for a year, or what do you got for a base right now in this state?
Well, you know, we don't have that many in the state. First of all, I mean, half a dozen.
Okay.
Okay? And then you can say why. Well, the reason why is that there's been no requirements. And if there's no regulatory requirement, there's no demand. Nobody does this stuff unless they have to, okay? I'm in that kind of business. Nobody hires us because they only hire us because they have to.
Right, the DEP has created the demand. The DEP has created the demand. They've said things should operate at 10 or less.
Well,
And
I
so
would
they
urge,
create the demand.
I would suggest that EPA has created the demand.
Okay.
EPA has required these TMDLs, and the regulatory agencies, in my experience, have been pretty slow at the switch to address what they're required by law to address. Okay, this is an EPA requirement. It's a national one, and you know, it's just like cesspools. I mean, we work in areas where there's still cesspools that have been outlawed since 2005. So, but this is a EPA requirement. It's a water quality standard, and it's a water quality protection. So, so personally, I don't think that the issue of general uses versus provisional should be a significant factor in any decision-making, et cetera. But that's my opinion. Okay? I mean, again, we've got 25 years of data, of operating data.
I see that.
Yeah, nobody else has that. So.
You may be right technically, but that doesn't change the requirement on us to obey the law.
Yeah, I'm not saying don't obey the law. I'm not saying that.
Let him go on with the rest
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
thing.
there's no, we're not
I think we
suggesting
got
don't
the
obey the law.
information on where he's at. He's got to give.
I'm sharing with you ways to obey the law and save money. I mean, at the end of the day, we've been in your shoes. I've been in your shoes as the engineer of record for communities implementing these things. And I had to convince folks why things needed to be done and how they needed to be done. So, you know, now the wrinkle is in terms of nitrogen. Before it was more bacterial standards. Okay? So, this is not, I mean, we've been in your shoes, okay? So I understand it. So, so any event, other aspects of the technology is that it has consistent performance, even with seasonal use. This was tested at MasTech back in 2002. And there's minimal operator requirements. Once a year is fine for the operator to visit. And when you start looking at the cost, for a single-family, three-bedroom house, we're saying the equipment cost is basically $21,900 for a basic one. If there's additional pumps required because of site conditions, that's the reason why there would be additional cost. Install cost is site-specific. We don't provide opinions on installation cost. And then in terms of operation maintenance, again, electricity, it's $50 a year. The equipment does not need to be replaced. We're not talking about the useful life of the equipment is well over 20 years. There's really nothing of substance that needs to be done for 20 years. The pump, and frankly, the pumps we're using are well pumps. They last very long, and they're very well established technology. Besides that, there's really nothing else. You know, we were cut from the cloth in the 1960s, so our focus is low maintenance, simple to operate, and low energy use, okay? Now, based upon the EPA required sampling, the annual O&M for provisional systems is $19.50. because of the quarterly sampling. And then if you go to 1 year sampling, it's $850, but a healthy percentage of that is for the lab, okay? So automatically, for discussion purposes, you could cut the annual cost in half by doing it under a district and doing the statistical approach, round numbers.
We agree.
What's that?
We agree.
Okay, good. So that's the O&M requirements and cost issue. And I think you all know, those costs are more than competitive in the marketplace today. In terms of comparable systems, they're lower cost, both on a single, on an installation cost as well as a life cycle cost, okay? And very importantly, low energy use. When we go beyond individual systems, we start looking at cluster systems and larger, and I'm gonna briefly talk about this because this is a significant part of what we do is on the larger systems. We do them with SCADA systems, so we are monitoring and managing these systems remotely via the web and the cloud. We get daily reports from what's going on, and our alarms are issued instantaneously to our office as well as the operator to deal with issues. The cause of the alarm is also always specified. In terms of, the picture tells the story. Those are photographs of representative installations. The top two on the left there are Maryland, because back in 2010, Maryland initiated a program for providing grants and implementing on-site system for nitrogen removal, obviously for Chesapeake Bay. And then the one all the way on the right is in Virginia Beach, because similar issues there. That one is an example of the smallest footprint of the system, in which the recirculating media filter can be located on top of the septic tank. So the footprint requirements are diminished. And then the bottom two photographs are before and after installation of a system that serves two houses, okay? And so that's and that system was installed back in 2010, as I recall. In terms of the ones in Massachusetts, we've had this one operating in Mashpee since 2006, 5,000 plus gallons per day. It was a combination of, it's right next to Mashpee Town Hall. It's affordable housing subdivision with some commercial application there. And then on the right, to the right of that is the one we did back in 2007 in Malibu, California, at a shopping center. And most of the system is underground. And you can see those concrete white things, and there's a manhole in the middle. Those are the tanks that are underground, because we took the position of we don't want to consume land with these technologies, because land in a lot of places is either not available, limited, or expensive. So we're able to do that. And the one in the bottom right-hand corner is the one we recently, well, I guess it's a few years ago, implemented in Southampton, New York. It's for 11,000 gallons a day for 37 townhouses. And you can see the footprint there. Unfortunately, in that county, they don't allow parking on top of the wastewater systems. So every place has its uniqueness. In the left-hand corner, the top left-hand corner is the treatment system for a shopping center in Sudbury. That's 9,600 gallons a day. And for that site, DEP issued us a pilot permit, what's called a site-specific pilot permit at 10 milligrams per liter, which means that there was no density requirement. The density requirement of X number of gallons per day per acre was eliminated. When DEP issues that site-specific or in a general use under 10, that means that the density on a property is dictated by other things than wastewater. And as I'm sure you know, that's a huge economic issue. And you'll see there, that's been operating. So I took that as a big compliment that DEP had that much confidence in the NITREC system that it issued that, issued that site-specific piloting approval at 10 milligrams per liter, okay? I don't know of any others that have been issued by that. Then you can see the data, and the effluent data you can see is very consistent. We're well below 3 there. In Granby, Massachusetts, that's for a condominium complex, 17,000 gallons a day, so it's a groundwater discharge system. And again, you'll see we are achieving, 3 plus or minus for the past 5 years, okay? And then in Southampton, you can say since 2021, we've been averaging under 2 milligrams per liter on total nitrogen, okay? And those facilities, I should mention, for instance, Granby, its groundwater discharge permit, operator visit once a week, not every day, like activated sludge systems are required to do. In Southampton, twice a week, just to frankly do sample collection.
Is the building part of the Granby system? There's a building in there.
Yeah, what you'll see in these sites, on all 3 of them, we've got an operations building, quote, operations building. It's 10 by 16. It's mainly for the electrical equipment, controls, everything that's got to be above ground.
That's fine.
And obviously weather protected.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So you can see it's pretty modest, okay? And the one in Sudbury, those are shipping containers that have been repurposed for this, and we made them look pretty, as demanded by the neighbors. But what do you call it? The operations building is in one of them, or it's part of it, but that's the treatment technology. That's the RMF is in those shipping containers. So all of a sudden, that's one of the techniques we can use to minimize footprint, okay? We can work above and below grade, okay? So, and this is a large part of what we do. And then in Harvard, and then these are some of the single-family ones in Massachusetts, and you can see, they're all doing extremely well in Westfield and Wellfleet as well, and the one in Harvard, we did that back in 2010. That's when we started that one. Okay.
What body of water are they worried about in Harvard, Massachusetts?
What happens, what we see is that there's, quote, environmentally sensitive areas that we get pulled into, and the regulatory folks are looking for minimizing impacts on wetlands, adjacent. In that case, there was adjacent wetlands, and it was high groundwater at the site. That's the reason why we had drip there as well. So our strategy when we deal with the regulatory agencies is typically to raise the bar. We're going to go in with a first-class system, and so that the environmental impacts are de minimis. So that's typically what we see, and that's usually our client profile, is usually they're in very environmentally sensitive areas where, yes.
So, Pio, on any of these, Harvard, Westfield, Wellfleet, do you have cost estimates for those specific implementations?
I can only tell you, again, the equipment stuff. I don't remember, well, I can tell you the one the one in Wellfleet, I don't even want to tell you the number because they were outrageous. The installation cost was outrageous. Yeah. Yeah. Then you're dealing with market conditions, and they're making a pretty penny. Yeah. Yeah. We can tell, obviously, what the price should be and what it is. And that's why I said that recommendation regarding the district. You know, your biggest area to make cost savings is, my, opinion, is on the construction end. Because those things, they're gonna, whatever the market bear is what the price you're gonna see. And Wellfleet is gonna, and that property was very high-end property. So,
Okay. So high, the cost was high.
So, but you'll see, how do I go back? I'm sorry.
Go up.
Good, thanks. So you can see in those installations there, again, Mashpee, Eastham, Cluster Systems, and in Malibu, we're getting total nitrogen under 3 typically. And operator requirements are, de minimis. There's really not much for the operators to do.
What's the, in that Mashpee one, what's the expression geo-mean?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Back up. One more, up, Mashpee. So if you look in the table, Peel, in the table, you have the word geo-mean.
Right.
Geometric mean.
Well, geo-mean, EPA has even published on, geo-mean is preferred to be used versus averages.
Okay.
Because the geo-mean, you know what it does,
I just hadn't seen that expression before, so that's why.
well, yeah, we typically show both of them in certain situations, but the geo-mean is more representative because the average gets distorted by the outliers, good or bad. So, and then the last item from a technology perspective, and, I look at these from what we've professed as our capabilities, is really the PRB is part of the decentralized approach. And I'm sure you know that in where it's applicable, the PRB approach is significantly less expensive than any wastewater treatment technique for nitrogen removal. We've done a number of studies on this that show, in one case, it was going to be $7,000 per house to achieve TMDL. And these are the ones that we've actually done. The PRB, I can thank Ken and his colleagues in terms of being involved in the PRB that we did at Wacoit Bay back in 2005. So I'll get to that in a minute, but we've used this now in other areas. The first one on the top there is in Southampton. It's associated with the other project that I showed you where we did this wastewater treatment, and they're part of the same development, if you will, but one's on a different side of the canal. And when we got involved, we spotted the location was perfect for a PRB. And so that's the PRB being installed. It was 20 feet wide and 20 feet deep, 12 feet into groundwater. And we're required, and we've guaranteed, and we're required to certify this through sampling, that the PRB removes 94% of wastewater nitrogen for that site. So we're basically treating, that PRB is basically treating a drain field, okay? Effluent. Now, what it's also doing is, and this is the value of the PRBs, it's treating nitrogen that's in groundwater from other sources, whether it's upgrading septic systems, fertilizers, et cetera. The background concentration of nitrogen is 10 milligrams per liter at this site. Now you know why there's algae blooms, et cetera. It's unbelievable, okay? And those things are gonna take decades to flush out. So what we did there was, we put the PRB in, we engineered it, got it permitted, et cetera. It's installed and it's been operating now for, whatever, 5-6 years. And the table on the right, the important thing, the table on the right shows the combination of the PRB and the other treatment system that I showed you removes more wastewater nitrogen than is being discharged. It removes 124% of the wastewater nitrogen being discharged. And I thought that the committee and the town would be interested in that example, given the concerns you have with some large development that's being proposed in town. And I read, I think, where some folks were advocating that they be required to achieve no net nitrogen impact. It's doable, okay? And it's not that hard. And it's very, in my opinion, it's cost effective, okay?
At this facility, can you measure the upstream and the downstream oxygen content?
Yeah, we measure, well, frankly, at the site,
The reason I ask this is because another board in town thinks that a PRB will reduce the oxygen in the groundwater, which will be detrimental to the fish population in the stream. So it's an open question, and if you have an answer, that would be great.
I would refer to Dr. Foreman. He's the one that answers that question.
Okay.
He studied it, and
It
he's
would, the
scientist.
question is for how far, and
I'm just-
what's the impact on
Yeah,
the
I'm just-
receiving waters?
Yeah, I understand.
I.e.
It's a
Coonamessett
I get it, I get it.
question out there.
There's issues, that's the site we're talking about, and this is Dr. Foreman's data with Joe Valino. They collected all of this data, and, over 99%, whatever, nitrogen removal. And the beauty of, the godsend there was the shoreline shows the iron staining that comes from the PRB, because the PRB is anaerobic, releases the iron that's in the sand, and when it hits the water or the atmosphere, it oxidizes to ferric and precipitates out. So that's the best example of how effective it is. And obviously, the data is the scientific way, but the visual impact of the photograph that, what's his name, Chris took, Weidman.
Chris Weidman,
Yeah,
right.
at the LaCroix Center. So that was serendipitous, I guess is the right word. So.
I will say regarding mortality, okay, we did do a few little studies on benthic populations. There were no effects once you got a meter or so beyond that. Sure, it's diluted by such a large amount of surface water.
If one really gets excited about it, pumping air into groundwater, you can hear it. You really get excited about it. So there's ways to deal with it. Although, like Ken's shown, it's de minimis, okay? And what we looked at here as well is we've been measuring BOD levels. So we've been able to predict how far before that BOD gets cleansed. So this one here is, I can't remember exactly, but the one in Southampton is, 500 feet before it hits the water body. So it's got some cleansing left, if you will. And the area is relatively flat. So the other one that's interesting on the PRB is we've got one in Connecticut that's been operating since 2020. And this is for a nursing home and for their septic system. And their downgrading wells were in violation of the state standards on total nitrogen being over 10. We were retained to help deal with that. And when we went to DEP there in Connecticut, they didn't want a treatment plant. And because treatment plants, they're going to require daily operators, it's going to cost a fortune. We had, frankly, advocated for the PRB, and they preferred that. So we've put it in. It was incredibly inexpensive, less than $100,000 for the installation cost there. And part of the benefit there is you can see on the, I'm going to call it the isometric drawing, is that there's an aquitard down, not that deep. I can't remember, I think it's about 10, 15 feet deep. So we didn't have to go deep to capture the plume. And it didn't need to be that wide because our strength of the wastewater was, or excuse me, the plume concentration was relatively, it was 10 milligrams per liter. So, any event, so we're required to do quarterly sampling there for the client and submit reports to the state on its effectiveness. So, any event, the PRB, and there's certain variations on that, in my opinion, can be implemented, that can be a significant part of the solution. Matrix. And then the last one, again, we just talked about it, was this all started in 2005, we were involved with, which was a result of our being selected for a competition in the Falmouth back in 2000, 2001, when there was, Dr. Foreman liked what we did in that proposal. We proposed a wastewater system that was going to treat it with constructed wetlands, et cetera, and the PRB, as I recall. And so this project was done under can help me with this, a university private sector collaborative. It was grant funded, but the requirement was collaboration between between an academic institution and a private sector. So thank you for your attention, and I'm ready.
Thank you, Peel. This was very sort of comprehensive. I know that a number of people on this board are going to have questions. I'm going to ask the board, rather than each of you having like 8 questions in a row, I'm going to start to the left and give you each a chance to ask one question. We'll go back and forth till we expire the questions, okay? So everybody's going to get a fair chance. Does the audience have questions? Okay, so I just want to know if you're out there, and we'll get to you as well.
Yeah.
Ken?
I guess the main question I have, Pio, is, as you know, there's already out there an approved system that uses similar technology, the wood.
It was a knockoff, yeah.
technology. And,
It's not yet approved. It's getting close.
okay.
I just want to clarify.
Nitrex and
Nitro and nitrix.
nitro are in the similar status in terms of DEP, except nitro is probably a little further along.
Nitro's within a year of having
Right.
50 and 50 and
Right.
being
Yeah,
started.
and Nitro had the benefit, for whatever reason, of being subsidized by the town, by grants that the town of Tisbury and the outfits, this public group in Barnstable, in terms of subsidizing and installing their system.
I would point out that, at least here in Falmouth, a couple of the engineers in Falmouth have gone to the Board of Health to get their approval to put the nitro system in. So there's a couple of them, at least 2 of them, if not 3 or 4 of them,
Yeah.
perhaps more,
Right.
in Falmouth. So
Right.
Right, my
you guys
question-
both have different, momentarily, business models, but again,
Well, that's really what my question is,
Okay.
is how do you get a Nitrex system versus how do you get a nitro system if, if I decide tomorrow I need to put a D-Nite system on my property?
Well, there's phones. I mean, you can call.
Right, but do I call you,
Well, at a
and then
minimum.
what?
What's that?
I call you and then what? What happens? You provide design to a local installer? I mean, what?
We're very ambidextrous. I mean, the typical process is that, Nitro's done a good marketing job. And,
I'm not interested in nitro. We know how they work. I'm
Yeah,
interested
yeah.
in how Nitrex works.
well, frankly, it's no different than any purchase of anything. Is you reach out to the supplier of it and you work out the details. We get calls from engineers and we provide them. So we provide them with, on one level, we'll provide them just with the AutoCAD drawings and coach them as to how to do it. And then we'll review their drawings. On the other extreme, in, for instance, Westfield and Wellfleet, we do it all. We did the engineering and everything on it. So, and then we've done projects where we work with the local engineer. They do all the site work, the septic tank and the drain field, and we do the nitrax component. And we'll do the design and, and supply it in turnkey it, okay? So those are the three ways it's typically done. And we're doing one like that with an engineer in Centerville right now for 3,000 gallon a day system, okay? And again, we've done the ones in Wellfleet and in, what do you call it? In Westfield. So we can do it any which way. So, and why, you can then, naturally the question, how come the engineers are not calling us? I don't know why. Okay. We've been around. I mean, we're not, we've been around for 25 years. Yeah. So,
Ed?
Okay. General business question. Very impressive systems, been installing them for a whole bunch of years, seems to be heavily oriented towards more cluster systems, which has a whole bunch of benefits. P.O. Associates. Lombardo
sorry, say that
Associates.
again, please, I'm sorry.
Lombardo Associates. You've been doing this a long time. We're in a similar age bracket.
Right.
What's the organization? What's the structure? What's the redundancy, succession plan? I hope you can do this forever, but I know you won't be able to.
right.
What is your staff? When
Frankly, at one time, I had 55 people.
Okay.
So, I've been there, done. We're now pretty lean and mean, and so we're half a dozen. But, as you can imagine, I've got pretty good network. So it's not that hard to get support when there's orders, okay? We've had to deal with a lot of just talk for a long time, okay? People have been talking to us for a long time. We're doing nothing. So, again, we have never had a problem of satisfying a client's needs.
And we're looking as a committee recommending to the powers that be in this town over 6,000, probably eventually 7,000 or 8,000
Right.
IA systems.
Right.
What is the base you have to support something like that? And also, question, if I may ask a second one, is what experience?
You get one.
Oh, okay, I'm
You get
sorry.
one, then
All
we're-
right, that's my
we're
one.
gonna move down,
What,
okay?
can you?
Yeah, but if I may just answer, I was the engineer of record of a project on today's dollars is over $150 million, okay? Our clients didn't ask us, let me see, they had faith and confidence in our skills and delivery capability, okay? And if we didn't perform, we got, dealt with in that manner. Never had a problem with that. And if anybody played that card of, I got to make sure that you can produce this, we probably wouldn't have been hired, okay? It's called entrepreneurship. The other piece of it is that, I got an email the other day from let me call it an agency. They were concerned about the ability to deliver. And I said, don't worry, number one. Challenge us. And number one. And the other piece of it, there is such a long sales time between where a project gets even conceived, planned, permitted, before the equipment gets delivered. Easy 2 years. So it's just not, as well as, we don't need to do everything. Okay? There's a lot of different ways to achieve success. And we would not want to we don't want to take away work from anybody local, but we just want to get the problem solved at the best, for our clients. So I would just say that's never been an issue. I've heard that, can you satisfy the demand? The demand, please. What is the demand really going to be? Your demand is, if you gotta do 6,000, what's it look like on a Gantt chart in terms of when you're gonna require that?
7,000 in 20 years.
We're talking
7,000 in 20 years, that's what we're looking at.
7,000 and,
7,000 in 20 years.
all right,
I
so
just,
that's
you asked, I told you.
350.
I know.
A year.
Yeah.
Wow, we just, that's not, that's not that many. That's
So,
not that
I'm gonna get the next sort of shot at this, it's more of a comment. Early on, you talked about the WMD sort of, managed thing. That was nice to hear. We have gotten a presentation from the Mass Tech Center folks about what they refer to as SUP. So we are very much trying to, first off, get to the scale of how many advanced systems we're likely to be looking at. We're narrowing that down pretty much. We've got 3 more estuaries to go, so we're getting close. But we recognize that having thousands of homeowners, each kind of on their own, down the road is probably not a smart thing. We don't have an answer yet. I just wanted to give you that thank you for your perspective. If you heard another perspective, we're gonna have to circle back. Now.
Right. Well, thank you. I'm glad you realized, and, my interpretation, what you just said, you realize that public management of these systems is going to be a necessity. Is that at some level and at some time?
Yeah, and just, thank you for your sort of perspective on costs. We've heard a different perspective on costs.
Right.
Currently, if you're on the sewer, your average bill is $450 a year. You're pointing out a thousand something per year cost for an advanced system. So that's a perspective to have. Go ahead, Steve.
I'm intrigued by your comment on bulk construction. Please don't say anything about bulk purchasing of the hardware. I understand that. Don't change.
It's an easy one, yeah.
Right. But bulk
Let's
construction.
go to Costco.
I don't understand how that works, because I picture, we have to go out for bids.
Right.
So we go to you, we go to, let's say you educate us first on what bulk construction is. And then we
Well,
get.
first of all.
Well, no, let me
Go
explain
ahead.
the problem.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
You give us a bid, we get a bid from Mass Tech Center and from Company X. A fixed bid on this mass construction. That means to me that each of those 3 bidding companies, 2 of which won't get anything out of it, they'll be the losers, have to go to 6,000 homes and negotiate with the homeowners.
That's not what
Or
I-
else, we have to tell the homeowners that you, Mr. Homeowner, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, have to put up with whatever our mass constructor decides to do to your yard. How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, the best way for me to answer is say, that's not the way we would propose it, and that's not the way we have actually done it, okay? We would not recommend that, because you're not gonna
Of
get.
course. No,
you're
that's
not
why I
gonna
wanna hear
get-
how you do
I'm
it.
not gonna bid.
Right.
I'm not interested.
So how do you do it and make it work?
Well, the way that my experience, the way I have made it work, we get selected as the engineer of record, okay? And the engineer of record assembles the plans and specs, okay? The plans and specs then are bundled for multiple properties, okay? Any plans and specs are approved by the property owner. We're not.
Okay, I see.
We're not coming down and telling people anything. So, and we frankly had great success. We never had anybody balking on it. So
We
people
hire
get
you as the
paranoid.
engineer, you go around to all the homeowners, you negotiate what's gonna be done, you write that all up, and then we go out for
It's
bids.
normal standard engineering practice.
Thank
And then what gets done is rather than one house, you're gonna have.
yeah.
We had a rule of thumb that we made the contract large enough to not exceed the typical bonding capacity of the contractors that can do the jobs, okay? Because that becomes a constraint. I mean, we've got a lot of experience, so that's the key, is really, $2 million was the number we used years ago. You don't want it bigger than that, because you're gonna not get all the contractors you want. What it is today, to be determined. So, but it's more an engineered approach with, and treating this, and that's the way you get economies of scale. You get economies of scale both on the engineering side, and then you get your economies of scale on the materials and on the construction side. Okay? So that's the way we've done it. Okay? No problems.
John?
Just a quick question, Pale. I'm very impressed now with the numbers that you've shown us for the individual hardware. And a 3 to 4 bedroom house is somewhere between $21,000 and $24,000.
Right.
As I remember, you're using for nitrification a standard already manufactured unit.
That's correct.
And so the question would be, as we begin to have our engineers specify nitrexes, how easy will it be for them to get first the nitrification box and then the denitrification box? And do you have suppliers identified for those?
Yes, now, good question. We define the Nitrex system as both, okay? We don't differentiate. We take total responsibility for everything. And frankly, we sometimes choose different suppliers of the recirculating media filter for a variety of reasons, whether it's cost, they don't have good service, they're being a pain in the neck, et cetera, et cetera. So, and we've used virtually all of the technologies that are out there in the marketplace. We've used, obviously, Advantex, we've used, what do you call, Waterloo biofilters, we've used the, what the hell was it? Septatech,
I
et
guess the
cetera.
point I'm trying to make is, Pale, the Board of Health at the moment is approving advanced IA systems.
Right.
And I can imagine engineers coming to you, now that the hardware costs are very competitive, coming to you and saying, we want to put this in Falmouth
Right.
under the provisional use. And I think from the Board of Health's perspective, they'd like to be able to say to their engineers, PAO can provide what you need
Right.
to install these right now.
Exactly. Yeah, and what we have, which is required by DEP, there are about 6 documents that we're required to provide the property owner. Okay? They have to obviously add this to their deed, that you have to record that there's an IA system onto the deed. There's an O&M manual. There's a design manual that we provide. There's an installation manual that we provide. And we have to get a letter from the property owner that says they've received them. Okay? So, and then on top of that, we've got the drawings, both in PDF and AutoCAD, of the 2 units. I mean,
Yeah, I think I'm going to rephrase John's question if I can. If I said to you today, I want to put one of your systems in,
right.
do you have somebody to make it?
Do I have what?
Do you have somebody that will make it?
To make them?
Do you have a manufacturer?
Oh, yeah.
You do.
Yeah, what we do, frankly, is assemble them.
That's fine. I think that was John's question. You know, you got a design, but do you have people lined up to start making
Our
it?
guys do it. I mean, what we've done in the past, for
Is that your
instance.
question, John?
Yeah, I want to know if there's one of our engineers in town looks at the approved list, of which there are 4 now,
Right,
and says, my client would like to put in a Nitrex.
right.
And they give you a telephone call and say, we want the hardware for a Nitrex for a 4-bedroom house. How soon can
Well,
can you get me
the
that?
the first step is they gotta design it. So we give them the AutoCAD drawings, okay? And then, they gotta come to the Board of Health to get approved. We ask that they send the drawings to us for us to hopefully make sure no errors are made, okay? And then they get the permit to approve. Then it goes to the contractor, they get a price from the contractor, and then it gets scheduled for construction. And then the contractor calls us and says, I want it delivered on these dates. Plenty.
I think the question both Steve and I are asking, I can imagine in the next several months, there are going to be people who will want one of these. And when that engineer calls and says, I've got the design, I've got the permits, Can you provide me with the boxes?
Yeah, no ifs, ands, and buts. I mean, what we frankly,
I'm gonna pressure, is it 2 months, 4 months, or 6 months to get one?
for us to have assemble them,
Yeah, to get one.
if it's really just one, I mean, it's less than a month. I mean, we can go, it's pretty quick.
That's what John,
That's basically
that's what you wanted to hear.
No,
it's within
I mean,
a
these,
week.
what we're doing is basically pulling things that are off the shelf and assembling in them and getting ready. And what we frankly do is we assemble them at a precaster's yard, that's what we've done in the past.
But I'll give you an example. If you wanted to get a vessel right now to treat PFAS, right? You're not gonna get it in a month.
We can provide one in a month. Oh, you're talking for other things.
Yeah, I'm just talking about PFAS. A PFAS vessel right now is 6 to 8 months delivery time because there's so much demand.
No,
on
we
it.
don't have any,
Okay.
we have no supply chains
Yeah.
problems. I mean, and again, what we've done is we just build an inventory at the precaster's yard,
Yeah.
and when we need them, we pull them in.
Good. That's the answer. That's
Yeah.
good.
As well as, one last comment on that, John, is we've got agreements with a yard in Harwich.
We had heard that.
Yeah. So we've teamed up with a contractor that has a yard in Harwich, and so, you know, they frankly came to us, and so we can service it. I mean, certainly, if we need to, we can do turnkey,
There you go.
and they can do the construction.
All right, Tom.
Yes.
And frankly, I prefer that,
I understand. Yeah. Tom,
because if
So-
I'm gonna be held accountable, I gotta be in control of it.
I'm not trying to push you along, but we get out here at 6:30, so we're gonna have to drop things off the agenda.
Thank you,
But I
thank
want
you.
to,
All right.
I want to give everybody a chance to ask questions.
I'll be pretty quick. These are pretty mature technologies. Been doing pretty much the same thing 2 decades plus.
That's right.
Do you see any breakthroughs anywhere in the works that might move it down to a fractional milligrams per liter? Like,
Well,
if you put these in series,
Now,
Is that-
what you're gonna get, what the constraint to get it as low as that is frankly, and Ken knows this, it's the organic nitrogen that's in the wastewater.
the organic
That
and
tends to
organic
be
split.
recalcitrant.
Yeah.
Or doesn't biologically
Right, okay.
degrade easily.
Yeah, getting down below 2 is
right,
always
I'm
interesting.
just
So
curious
you-
because we're running into a problem here, as I think everybody on the committee knows now, is our nitrogen-sensitive areas, even with the IA conversions, are not gonna
not gonna be good
move us, are not enough. And I just was curious, sitting here thinking about it and thinking that we're looking at a pretty mature technology. Was there any way it could be tweaked?
Well,
But your point about the refractory nitrogens. is very
Well,
good.
but we have a technique to deal with that if the client wants to pay for it, okay?
Right.
And the way it's done, I mean, first of all, when we, like you were saying, add some unit processes, for instance, in our commercial applications, we have 2-stage systems. We duplicate
Yep.
that process twice.
Yep.
Okay? So anything that bleeds through, we catch. As what that does, and then the bugs go and eat some of that organic nitrogen. The other technique we use is frankly ozone. If you really want to get nitrogen down, you oxidize the remaining, the nitrogen that's in there. You can oxidize it either with ozone or other stuff, and I remember Ken coming across this in standard methods. That's the method for measuring organic nitrogen, is you gotta oxidize it and convert it to, so that's doable. Then it becomes a matter of cost effectiveness.
Yeah. Good, thank you.
Yeah, yeah, and you can see from some of our data, getting down in the ones.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're getting under 2.
Yeah.
Excuse me, under 1. So it's achievable. And frankly, when we designed the one in Malibu, we had that in mind.
Okay.
Jonathan, you're up.
Okay, the way I understand your system, you're not using aeration, you're using water that's sprayed over to cause the nitrification. Can you talk a bit more about the volume of it? Is the homeowner gonna install some sort of drip irrigation system or sprinkler that's continuously running? How does it work?
The way that it works is that it's sprayed onto the media intermittently over the day. So there's a timer on it that says dose this volume of water onto the media, whatever, there's controls on the floats, so it's pump runs maybe 4 times a day. For maybe, I can't remember the numbers, but 10 minutes for a cycle.
So small volumes of water that's being.
Yeah, I mean, these pumps are generally pumping about 25 gallons a minute. So flowing a typical house, 250 gallons a day, 10 minutes, the pump's gonna run. Or there's some recirculation, so it's a little longer, but it's really de minimis.
Okay. No, you need to step up to the microphone so you can be heard, and you need to identify yourself, as always.
Maggie McGaugh from Waquoit. So my first question is about the equipment costs that you had projected, the 21.9 to 24. That is strictly the equipment for the for the 2 intermediate boxes. That's an addition
Between the
to
septic
an
tank and
existing
yes.
septic system.
That's correct.
And do you have an estimate of the installation costs? If it's just
It's all over the place.
well, but is it
We've wrestled.
15,000?
Maggie, we've
Is
wrestled
that-
with this before, so
Yeah.
it could be 15 to 50,000, depending upon.
for the
how-
installation?
Yeah,
Yes.
depending upon how deep.
With 25?
15 to 50, depending upon how steep the slope, how much other things go on, so this is the
And the
big,
market conditions.
it's the big variable. It's the
Okay.
big variable.
All
Yep,
right, I'll be back.
okay. I'll tell you what, because we're not gonna get through all of the questions today before the meeting ends. If you have a second question, ask it. No, you get a second question, not 3.
Second question, well, which do I want more? Phosphorus. What is the plan for dealing with phosphorus?
Well, yeah, the Nitrex system does not remove phosphorus to any substantive degree. We have a technology that we've used, and, phosphorid is a technique that we use. My professional opinion, the best, you'd have to use a different technology, okay? From what I have seen, and when you really consider cost, the simplest thing is really adding alum to the septic tank.
Yeah, people are testing it. So I think your answer is a good answer, okay?
Excuse me?
For Maggie, I mean, we have a pond issue, we have an estuary issue. The ponds are phosphorus, the estuaries are nitrogen.
Right.
Your system is not a phosphorus removal system. You have to go to something else.
Right.
Okay?
You got to go to a different system.
I just wondered if your company was developing an integrated phosphorus.
No, we engineer solutions. That technique's been around for a long time. It's pretty simple, pretty low cost, and is effective.
Maggie, I would suggest.
We have other techniques, but they're much more expensive.
Right now, the tech center's been looking at phosphorus removal things, so I think we should wait for them to come up with their report and see where we're at, okay? All right. You have a second question? Ken?
Do I?
Yeah,
No.
okay,
How about that?
good.
That's good.
Ed? Ed?
I'm going to leave off. I've got a lot of questions, but I've got plenty of information, very impressive presentation.
Thank you,
and,
appreciate it.
I wish you had a bigger installed base so you were further along in the approval process.
Right.
Go for it.
We've been passionate about it too, a while.
Yours?
Yeah. Near the beginning of the talk, maybe I just misheard you, but I thought you said that, as part of your introduction, that the standard for drinking water was 10 milligrams per liter, but that for estuaries, you had to go down to 0.3.
Correct.
0.35, yeah. That's correct.
Drinking water standard is 10. You can
I
drink
thought we were
water.
going to 3.
No, you're talking about the Sentinel station.
Sentinel stations,
Talking about the
okay,
concentration
that
in the
makes more
surface water.
okay?
I pass.
Pass?
Are you gonna ask a question? You're
No, I
skipping
don't have-
yourself.
I don't-
You don't have any. Okay, everything's great with
I
me.
have comments, but not questions.
Thank
Yeah.
you, appreciate it.
Pass. Steve, how many do you have? How many more questions do you have?
One or two,
Okay, hold
depending on how he answers.
Maggie, you get another shot at it. You had a third question? Yep.
I was as much a comment as a question. You talk about the difficulty of getting people to sign up to install these systems. And speaking as a person who is starting excavation on a house addition tomorrow morning, yeah, I have been.
You need some extra laborers, we're all available.
Yeah. Who you gonna call?
Speak for
So
yourself.
I have been really, I have been wrestling for weeks now with the question of what we are going to do for wastewater treatment, because we're in we're in the Wacoit Bay watershed. We're designated nitrogen-sensitive IA district house. And so it makes no sense for us to do something with this addition that doesn't already anticipate the requirements that are coming down the road. I don't want to spend X number of dollars now and then find myself having to spend more dollars later. And so I just wonder if there isn't the possibility of some kind of coordination with the Board of Health or Scott McGann, the health agent, or
So we have
something
we
in
have a
terms of.
representative, John, who goes to the Board of Health and tells them what we're doing. And we're working our way through these estuaries, Maggie.
Right, no,
We're gonna go meet with them.
my point is that it seems like there could be some mechanism to connect homeowners who are building new structures or making substantial additions who can see the writing on the wall that there's a big expense coming soon, and, you know, I want to do something and I still haven't figured out exactly what it's going to be. So,
Talk to Scott.
I mean, that's our service, we're engineers, so we solve problems. So if that's the problem, that's what we do.
It's a timing issue. Go ahead, Steve.
First, I want to make a comment on that. Keep in mind that IA systems are not alternatives to Title V systems. They're an add-on accessory. So if I'm not as professional as the Board of Health and PO and all those people, but if I was in your shoes, I would have my Title V, and I'd allow enough space and gravity pitch between my settling tank and my leaching field that you could plug in something later when and if you have to. You don't have to know anything technically to do that. You don't have to have chosen a vendor.
Well, what I think she's gonna need, though, is you need a professional that shows, here's where you gotta put it in. Or, I think,
Yeah, but
the lady was saying.
the concept, I'm just, the general concept, it's not instead of what you're doing, it's in addition. Just allow some space.
Yeah.
And in fact, that is part of the Board of Health's home rule regulations. Any engineer who designs you a system at the moment, at a minimum, is going to design a space between your septic tank and your soil absorption system that will allow for an IA to be installed. So that's already part of the current regulations.
Maggie, if you're putting an addition on that adds bedrooms, okay,
it doesn't, our existing Title V has the capacity.
has the capacity, okay, so yeah.
So then it's just a question of, do we want to go UD? Do we want to do
Gotcha.
composting toilets?
Yeah,
Do we want to go enhanced innovative?
I was gonna say, if you're adding bedrooms, then it's, what John's talking about would come into play here, but, okay. All right. Steve?
This is a follow-up to Ed's question. You know what licensed, bonded, and insured means. Absolutely. I'm not sure everybody here does.
Right.
Obviously, you're licensed, and I'm sure you have liability insurance.
Absolutely.
The thing I care about is bonding, which you mentioned that some years ago you didn't want to go above a $2 million bonding requirement on your subcontractors.
That's correct.
What is your bonding level?
We're not in the construction, we're not contractors.
No, but who warrants the system?
I do,
And what happens if
as
you
a
drop dead?
professional engineer.
What happens if you drop dead?
You go after his estate.
Well, first of all, the company, I'm certifying it as a professional engineer, the company is certifying it. The company has professional liability insurance, okay? So if there's,
You switched to liability from bonding.
what's,
I'm
I
sorry?
specifically ruled out liability. I know you have that, and I don't care about it.
Engineers typically don't have bonding.
No, that's never,
No, but he's a vendor, in a sense.
no, I'm not a vendor.
Well, who are we buying it from?
Excuse me, sir. I think there's a lot of things being commingled, with all due respect. First of all, any vendor, there's vendors, and then there's performance guarantee people, okay? Vendors provide equipment. They have warranties associated with it. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, it's your problem, okay? That's the nature of this business. Everybody's got enough wiggle room to say it's somebody else's fault, okay? So that's very common. Lombardo Associates warrants the performance of the system, and we stand behind it as professional engineers. I'm personally liable, okay? I'm personally liable. So you can go after me pretty easily, okay? That's what it means to be a professional engineer and to certify. It's pretty serious, okay? We're not a vendor, and I have no interest in being
I
a
didn't
vendor.
mean that as an insult.
No, 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 I'm just saying that's our differentiator. We certify, we're engineers.
Thank you.
Okay. That's a big, nobody else in the marketplace does that. It's a big difference.
All right. I'm gonna wrap this up, because we do get out at 6:30.
Okay.
Peel, this has been fabulous.
Well, thank you, I appreciate it.
Appreciate you
It's been a
coming
nice,
down here.
nice homecoming again.
And I guess I would suggest that, there's a limited number of engineers working on the Cape right now. I think you should reach out to each one of them,
Right.
remind them.
Well, I'm
that
going to
you
reach
like
out,
it.
John, if I may, to you. I'd be love to get the contact information on who these folks are, because we will. We'll do that, and,
Yeah, because
and,
the people
you know,
come-
we,
It's-
we're interested in being part of the solution.
Mike McGrath is no longer doing it. We're down to, Mike Barcelli and, who are the folks somebody out of Bourne that shows up, and then there's John, right? Is there a fourth one anymore? I think there's only 4 engineers that show up before the Board of Health now.
Right. There's usually a small number of engineers that do the vast
Yeah, very
majority.
small number, but.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
To
So,
the extent that they know your system and know that it works. And
I mean, I'll reach out to them. I
and
always
they
get,
can tell their
sup-
client that they can save $6,000 or $8,000,
I know, I hear you. I got an email from George Heufelder saying, Peel, people don't know they even exist. They think that you left.
Yeah.
I'm going, where's that? I'm still,
The scuttlebutt was that you're working on bigger systems out of state, okay? But,
well, I'm working for paying clients,
right now,
wherever they are.
we're marching towards,
And, we've been obviously waiting for it to happen on the Cape, and,
We're
I guess,
marching towards-
we were obviously early.
we're marching towards telling people how, people say you should put an advanced system 1,000 feet from every water body. We've taken and said, knowing where we're sewering and knowing all the parcels, how many parcels do we have to add at 10 milligrams per liter to get to the TMDLs? And I don't want to have to put it up, but it's 25% to 30% of the town.
Well, and I wasn't doing this to pander, but I complimented you all you're doing what we've been advocating for 30 years. So, it's nice to see somebody's now in the game, if you will. Because there's a lot of talk.
And I credit Jonathan. Jonathan's the newest member of the board, and ever since he's come on, we've really been getting things done.
That's it.
Right.
It's all his fault.
Right. But again, the last thing I would say is in terms of accomplishing that goal, the on-site wastewater management district,
That's the next big one to tackle.
It-
First off, we were like, how many are we gonna have and where will they be?
I
Then
understand.
it's, how are we gonna manage this thing? That's the next step.
Well,
Can I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
You better be quick, you got
It's
1
very
minute.
quick. So Pio, you've worked with the folks at Mass Tech.
Yep.
Would you ever form an alliance with them on something like a wastewater management?
I always take phone calls. And,
Your answer.
I like business, so I'm happy to respond to requests.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right, thank you, Bill. I gotta.
Thank you all, I appreciate,
No, no.
yeah, I mean, but.
Do me a favor.
to you, I would love, to me, it's a natural.
Do me
Why
a
not?
favor, when you get home, text so I know you're safe.
What's that?
When you get home, text me so I know you're safe.
Okay.
Got a long drive.
You know how I drive.
No. Okay, I would like to get a motion to defer items 3 and 4 to our next meeting.
Well, I want to put a rider on that, though. That's exactly what I want to suggest, but I would like to suggest, if people are available, that maybe we could meet a week from tonight. Because we've got a full list of things coming up. I was just going to suggest that as a way to get through a short
I
agenda.
understand. I'm unlikely to be available, but if other people want to have a meeting, you can have the vice chair take over.
Right, well, that's my suggestion, is that,
What's on the agenda for the meeting normally scheduled?
Well, we've got.
you mean 2 weeks
Can
from?
you, can you show
We
the
have oyster
slide
punch.
with the
Put
schedule?
put that slide back up, because I'm concerned with all the stuff that we've got coming between now.
That's fine.
If we could squeeze an abbreviated
So,
meeting in,
just let me pull the board.
Yeah.
Could you meet next Wednesday?
I believe so.
and
you-
as far as I know,
John?
I'm available.
Steve?
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Yes.
make an agenda for the 2 items that we're not doing, okay?
Is that enough?
For next Wednesday.
Time?
Yeah.
For-
Yes.
Yeah, you'll get through that in a,
In other words, Steve,
No, I meant.
Compared to the way we
don't you
normally
have to
operate,
She's ready to go tonight.
you'd be on vacation.
Don't you have to
I've
post
done
the
them. I've looked
agendas
at
and
it.
all that?
48 hours
gotta
before.
march through it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you. So that's my motion. I don't know whether it needs to be,
No, okay, so,
no, well, I just established that Steve is okay with not being here for items 3 and 4.
All right, let's make lots of
And that
decisions
way,
that affect.
the rest of our schedule, which is up here, doesn't change.
yep.
Right.
Chairman emeritus for life, Steve.
there you go.
We're gonna double his salary.
There you go. Yeah, I'll
Oh, I
get
thought we were gonna cut it in half.
two times 0 is still 0.
Right,
I'm
well,
good at
divided by
math.
2, it's still 0.
Wait a minute, Jonathan's getting part of that, is what I hear.
So Tom, are you making a motion to pass over items 3 and 4 on this agenda and have those brought up at a meeting to be held next Wednesday?
Yes, 1 week from tonight,
Okay.
and with
Do
the
we-
idea that it will be an abbreviated meeting
Is there
if
a second?
possible.
Is there a second to his motion?
Second.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
I discussed
I just wanted,
looking
I
at
just,
that November 6th schedule, and I believe that we can manage those 3 geo-boundaries. John Ramsey is not going to take an hour and a half. So, and the outfall update by Amy will be fairly brief.
but then we've still got 3 geo boundaries to do with your schedule, John.
I believe that's manageable.
Oh, you're saying put item 3 and 4 on November 6th,
Sixth.
along with everything that's already there.
Yes, I believe that we would be out of here by 6:30 if we did that.
Well, the other choice is, if we hold it to November 6th, I would ask that people make themselves available to go to 7 if we have to.
Fair enough,
Ooh,
fair enough. That beats a whole nother
You-
meeting, guys.
Yes,
Come on.
yes.
yeah,
yes.
but
We gotta
And if
thank
you have to leave at
Kristen.
6:30, you have to leave.
Does that mean it's pajama optional?
Oh, sure.
If we're going to 7?
If you wear
What
fuzzy
a
slippers.
casserole. My issue is my growling stomach.
Yeah, can they order
A
pizza?
lot of towns.
Maggie, can you and I get together and do a casserole?
Talking and talking and talking.
I'll manage them. We'll not go on. Okay, so.
Okay.
We have a motion to skip over 3 and 4, amended to say just skip over 3 and 4. All those in favor of skipping over 3 and 4?
Aye.
Okay. And you'll stack it all up on the November 6th.
Okay,
How long do we think John Ramsey's going to talk?
Half an hour,
How many questions on the Bournes?
we're not gonna, it's gonna be a presentation, I don't think that we're gonna turn the thing wide open, okay? This is just a summary of what he's done and why the dynamics are what they are, so people understand it better. All right, quick thing under reports of members and staff. You had a thing on the Little Pond, but
Yeah, you want me to do it?
no, let's leave.
Or just wait?
Let's wait. We can do that we'll squeeze it in.
That's fine.
But I think, did you distribute it around everybody?
No, I have not distributed it. I'll print it out.
Yeah, well, no, just give it to Kristen.
She has it.
Yeah, just distribute it,
Okay.
Kristen, saying
just-
this is information that will be on a future agenda. He's got a summary of all of the inflows and outflows at Little Pond.
Well, not all of them,
Well, a
but,
lot of them, just to see the rhythm of it.
but the question which catalyzed this was, what, the criticism about the Bourne Inlet opening, would that just be pushing high concentration water into Bourne's Pond? And when we looked at our data, had information that was relevant, which is no.
It's not going to.
The water coming in from the sound is a lot lower in concentration. So, I just put that together with a little bit of additional stuff to put it all in context.
And I got an email today from Ron Zweig going through stuff out of the MEP report and volumes and inlets and everything else. And I will get that to you, Kristen, and you can pass that out to everybody else as well, as part of correspondence to us relative to Flushing and everything else.
Right, because we've been measuring, what flows out, what flows in.
All right.
Well, it looks like we've got a lot of space on November 20th.
That's gonna,
That's gonna be a tough meeting.
That's gonna be very,
that's gonna be hot.
That may not be enough.
gonna be
That may
hot,
need a second session.
Katie, that'll be your all
And,
uppercase
and
write-up
is there
on
anything
that
that you've done
meeting.
in the last 2 weeks that you need to tell people about?
No.
Steve, you want any place on subsidies that we need to talk about? Or the IA?
Oh, I
committee?
was gonna ask Pio, but I could ask him after we
Sure you can.
closed,
Yeah, good.
because he implied some things that
Ask him after we
do
close.
not agree with other things we've heard.
Okay,
Can you wait till after the meeting?
John, Board of Health?
Just a quick update on the Board of Health Monday night. They're beginning and continuing their discussion about where within the town of Falmouth they're going to want to put advanced IAs.
Yeah.
And that went beyond our geo-boundaries to within the whole watersheds and to include impaired water bodies, which would mean Herring Brook. So that discussion is
Ongoing.
ongoing.
Okay.
And that's going to be something, I told them that very shortly, and after our November 20th meeting, the two boards are going to need to get together and work on this in some meaningful way.
Yes.
Tom?
No,
Oysters?
I'm-
Oysters are good?
Oysters are very happy, very good. We're still, have a date listed at the town website of November 1st, but Division of Marine Fisheries has to send an individual down
Yeah,
that will
so
do FaceTime,
Contingent upon
depending on their report,
1st of November,
and
contingent
I'll be
on-
surprised if it's November
Division of Marine
1st, just given the way things work.
All right, Jonathan, you're on the finance, get us some money, change the state law. I think we heard about that.
I hope so. Hope we have success. The other thing I'm doing is I'm giving a series of presentations at the Falmouth Newcomers Club
Oh,
to
okay.
people about the state of our waters and the issues around
Excellent.
nitrogen, phosphorus in the ponds, and
Right.
the mitigation steps. It's just part of that community outreach education.
That's a great idea.
Great,
Terrific.
good.
Thank you for doing that. All right, we have minutes from the last meeting.
Oh,
They're wonderful.
I read them.
thank you. Kristen and I have banged heads over it for a while, but they're
We're
okay.
back.
I'll move they be accepted as presented, given Ken's endorsement.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of accepting the minutes as published?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. This is I'll accept a motion for which there can be no discussion.
Adjournment, I'll move adjournment.
Okay?
Second.
Okay? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Say,